What's going on, everybody?
Hey, you guys.
Welcome back to East Africa with Willie and Rachel. We are super excited to be sitting with you again. Hallelujah.
Yes, we are.
So we've been talking about the hindrances or some hindrances to the believer, praise God. And these are specifically ways of thinking, theologies that mankind picks up so easily because of the deceptions of the devil and just lies and these types of things that can really hinder us in walking with the Lord. Today we're going to talk about the fear of man. And this is can be a big hindrance to us, to mankind, because we oftentimes honor, respect, or simply afraid of how people view us. All these different things have the power to hinder our walk with the Lord and walking down the path in which He's given us, Rachel.
Because it hinders.
It literally hinders us from going forward.
The response that you usually have.
Exactly.
It hinders your actions moving forward, what you think about what other people are saying, thinking, or doing.
100%. Like, for instance, we already, in one of these teachings, we talked about how you have to honor the Word. Well, if in Matthew chapter 14, Peter chose to honor God, and Jesus said, come, so he got out and walked on the water. But if he would have been fearing man at that moment, he would have looked around and said, oh my gosh, what are my brothers going to think of me? If I get out here and sink, they're going to think that I didn't have faith. If he would have started considering all those things, he never would have got out of the boat. The reason he was able to get out of the boat is because he did not fear man. He decided to fear God. He didn't honor man. He decided to honor God. And Proverbs 29:25, Rachel, says, the fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord shall be safe.
That's awesome.
And this is such a depiction because a snare is something that you set for an animal and it literally catches them. And traps them. And what's interesting, I don't know if you've ever seen an animal get snared. The reason they can't get out is because they don't stop pulling. They literally pull and pull and pull and pull. And you think to yourself, why don't they just stop, back up a little bit, and they'd probably be able to get out of that thing. And it's the same way. The fear of man is a snare. It's something that you get trapped by. And then rather than just being able to see it and walk free from it, oftentimes, Rachel, people just keep entering in further and further and further.
Yeah, what happens is you keep going, that thing gets tighter. People just keep going in that way, thinking about men, and before they know it, they've been squeezed so tightly. They've done things, they've said things, they've acted a certain way that they didn't want to act. They didn't want to do that. But they didn't shut it down. They didn't back up and say, you know what, wait a minute, I don't want to do that. I don't want to live like that. They get trapped in that thing. I mean, you'll see this a lot in people's following the Lord. You'll see them doing this in the workplace. Like, all of a sudden, they're in the break room. It's time to pray over their food or whatever, and people are looking at them, and then they're kind of like, but it's okay for the unbeliever to be using curse words, talking about all these, things that are gross, which happens a lot. But because the believer considers, oh, I wonder if they're going to think I'm weird. I wonder, and this is a small example. I mean, there's tons of examples, but just so you can begin to realize what we're saying about the fear of man, you are considering the way that somebody else thinks about you.
And that's what it is, because like Romans chapter 4 says that Abraham walked in great faith, considering not his own body, which was as good as dead, being 100 years old. And so those things you consider, once you take into account the thoughts of other people, which you have no idea what they are. This is why people are snared a lot of times, Rachel. And let me just give you some practical, the way people get snared by the fear of man. One would be introversion. If you're an introverted person, oftentimes it is because you're fearing what people are going to think about you, or what people are thinking about you all the time. I can speak from experience because I had to come out of being an introvert, and it only happened by honoring God. And little by little, I started to be able to break free from that. I started to, like when I would want to do something openly because I felt like God had called me, a lot of times, Rachel, I would fall back and not be able to go forward because I'd be thinking, oh, what are these people going to think about me if I fail? What are they going to think about me if I step up and say something? What are they going to think? And it caused me to be very reserved. And in reality, I was reserved to an extent, maybe a little bit in my personality naturally, but I was also very held captive by the fear of man. And you could flip this on its ear on the other way, and someone who is super extrovert and they found out no, but I'm saying it in a negative sense. They found out that it brings attention and it brings so if they're doing that to gain attention, to gain man's approval, they're the person who's always, very charismatic, but they're doing it in a sense to gain approval. That is also the fear of man. Either way, when you're doing something and you're entering in the consideration of other people all the time, it will snare you.
And I'm looking at when Jesus entered his earthly ministry. This is a great example of how Jesus operated outside of the fear of man. How it did not hinder him. And this is Luke 4. So as Jesus is entering his earthly ministries in Galilee, and he goes into the synagogue there, right? This is where he says a prophet has no honor in his hometown. But yet, before he says that, he's ministering. He's preaching. He's doing what he knows to do. Even though, guess what? They're going to reject him. They're going to try and throw him off a cliff. At the end of this, they're like, well, let's kill him. But you know what? He didn't take all of this into consideration like, this is my hometown, so good, and I'm afraid of what they're going to think about me because they know that I'm Joseph's son. I'm the son of a carpenter. What if I go in there and I stand there and they're like, who are you to say this and that? And guess what? They did try to throw him off a cliff. Jesus was so unmoved. He was so solid in who he was in the eyes of God. And mind you, he had just been baptized by John the Baptist. Where the dove, it says that not a dove, it says the Spirit descended like a dove, and the heavens opened up, and God said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." And that was Jesus's focus. His focus was not on what people were going to say about him or think about him. His focus was on who he was to God and what he was called to do. If we will keep our focus on who God is and what we are called to do, and we don't consider what everybody's going to say about us, even the people closest to us, even your closest friends, your closest family, if you'll stay focused on who you are to God and who he is to you, you will walk in confidence. You will be unhindered. You won't set yourself back because of other people. So you will keep moving forward in what God has called you to do.
That is so
just
good.
Like Jesus did.
And when you want to walk in great faith, this is the way. This is one of the huge keys. Is if you are fearing man, you will not walk in great faith. It is an impossibility because to walk in great faith, faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word, and then beginning to sow that word into you, and that word creates this buoyancy in you. However, if you're considering other things, you're sowing the tares along with that word. And Jesus talked about, like in Mark chapter 4, the cares and desires for other things entering in choke the word. So God's going to tell you can do something, but you'll be considering what other people say. Oh my gosh. And here's the thing, you can't pick and choose and to say, well, I like these considerations and I don't like these considerations. Once you enter into that, it will affect your life. This is why a lot of people, Rachel, if someone says you're awesome, they're like, oh, thank you. They feel so good about themselves. And then guess what? When someone says, I don't like you, you're a jerk, they melt and they feel so horrible about themselves. It's an equal pendulum there. People want the good, but here's the thing. Where you honor that good opinion, oh, now I'm somebody.
You love the praise.
Yeah, now I'm somebody because someone says I'm something. Well, you're also going to honor when they say you're nothing, and you'll never go farther than what man says you can do. If you want to be receiving that God life and walking in that amazing faith, like our Savior Jesus Christ, and letting His faith come through us, and we see mountains move in our life, you're going to have to stop considering, stop fearing man, and get your focus on God and only consider the Word.
Woo! It's good, you guys. All right, we love you. We'll see you next time.